Hi, I'm Bernard Leong, and you may know me as the executive who explains to you why I've never used a ride-hailing app in Southeast Asia, and in my spare time, I want to know why Go-Jek is taking on Grab from Indonesia to the rest of Southeast Asia. You're listening to Analyse Asia, the weekly podcast dedicated to business, technology, and media in Asia. And today I have Rama Mamuaya, founder and CEO of DailySocial, Indonesia's largest tech news site. Welcome, Rama, and it's great to have you back again.
Thanks, Bernard. Glad to be here.
We haven't spoken for a while, so since our last conversation, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I've been growing the company. I think the last time we talked 2 years ago or something. Social's grown bigger. We just try to be, we're a media company, but we're also trying to be profitable. So we've been profitable for the last 4 years, big things in helping our clients making money, surviving, basically.
But you're still reporting tech news for the Indonesia startups. I guess DailySocial is just more than just being a news portal, but you also do research and also helping the startups to match up with funding. And you also have your own conferences, events as well, right?
Yeah, we don't do big conferences anymore, but I think we have three main businesses. Media business, which still works at the very beginning. We have research, also sell research to our clients. Also publish lots of research for free. So if you want to know more about Indonesia, in numbers, you can go to the website and download it for free. So we have consulting where we help our corporate clients connect with the startup ecosystem and the innovation community.
So recently I saw on your Twitter feed that you have launched a new innovation incubation platform. Can you elaborate on this?
Yes, one of our clients is one of the largest bank in Indonesia. They're very strong with SME. They're the largest loan lender for SMEs in Indonesia. We are helping their SMEs to grow bigger, 10x we call it. And we use our innovation platform, a web-based and a mobile app platform to connect with the innovation ecosystem in Jakarta. Because in Indonesia, it's very centralized. Everyone is in Jakarta, while the SMEs is spread all across Indonesia. So we want to connect them using the app with the mentors and all the successful people, basically the experts in Jakarta through the app and the platform.
And how does this platform work in case if there's any Indonesian startups wants to get access to mentors and funding or any other services that they may need in order to grow their companies?
Yes. So basically we have three pillars of the platform. There's education, where you can consume content. If you want to learn more about how to become a better entrepreneur, how to scale, how to fundraise. And this is more than just tech startups, but also conventional SMEs. So we will be talking about, there's a specific sections about supply chain, finance, the whole thing. That's the first pillar, the education. The second pillar is the mentoring, where you can connect with fellow startups or fellow SMEs, fellow founders and communicate, but also you can communicate with mentors. And also with the third pillar is the research and data, where you can access our vast amount of data that can help you run your business better.
Rama, so there's just no change in terms of maybe you have gone bigger with DailySocial. So you're still the Harrington plus Om for Indonesia, right?
That's way too nice. But no, they're great guys. But yeah.
But you're still the default person I will go to understand the Indonesia startup ecosystem. And it is actually growing a lot in the past few years. Of course, there is Go-Jek, there is Tokopedia. They have all become startup unicorns in one way or another. But overall, how has the startup ecosystem in Indonesia evolved in the past 3 years?
We've went way back, right? So I've been in this industry since 2008. There wasn't an industry to begin with when we first started. But now it's one of the largest in the world. We have 3 unicorns. 3 out of 5 unicorns in Southeast Asia are from Indonesia. That says a lot. Our huge population, huge market, that's a big help for all these companies. It's basically like China. You have big market to begin with. As long as you dominate the local market, you'll get along just fine with the investors in terms of valuation. But yeah, grown a lot. More and more people has gone. I think back then in 2010, not a lot of people use smartphone. Not a lot of people use apps. People use smartphones. They use Facebook. They use Twitter and all that stuff. But they don't use app for their daily activities. And now that changed radically. Go-Jek really changed everything. Therefore, other companies such as Tokopedia, Bukalapak, the e-commerce companies, Traveloka, they all get significant help from Go-Jek in terms of shaping that online behavior of Indonesian market.
This is a very timely conversation, and I just didn't realize we have known each other for 10 years. Still remember that Echelon conference that we first met, and we had that really big This Week in Asia podcast discussion, right? right?
That was a long time ago, man.
Of course, over those years, I also see the rapid rise of the Indonesia startup ecosystem. And of course, today, I wanted you to come on to tell me more about Go-Jek in Indonesia, because they are actually proving to be a significant competitor to Grab, the ride-hailing app, or maybe these days they're pivoting themselves to be the super app in Southeast Asia. So I probably wanted to start off into understanding Go-Jek as a company, because they have been funded by very prominent companies like Tencent and Google. And of course, one of the things that's happening in Indonesia is that not just being the battleground for US tech giants, but also the Chinese tech giants. For example, I think Tencent's regional headquarters in Southeast Asia is in Jakarta, not in Singapore, which is very interesting. Can you briefly introduce the company Go-Jek and what is their mission and vision as a company?
It started out as a ride-hailing company. Actually, Go-Jek used to be a call center company. So it started out when Nadim, who was born educated, when he went back to Indonesia, having difficulties going from one place to another in Jakarta, specifically because of the traffic jam. And although Ojek back then was the motor ride was very efficient way of getting places, it wasn't a comfortable process because you have to negotiate the price, and the helmet would be, it would smell bad. And it was all these small things that, especially for foreign people, it's not comfortable. So he changed that. So it started as a customer service company. If you called a number back then in 2011 and 12, you call the CS and I want to order a ride from point A to point B. The person on the other side of the phone will tell you, okay, this is how much you have to pay. This is the plate number. He will pick you up at the assigned location, and that was it. The driver would give you a nice helmet, a nice jacket, and all that. It started out as a very conventional way of doing things, and then in 2014 they launched an app to do that. Basically inspired by Uber, and maybe Grab a little bit. That Nadim sees this market as highly potential for this kind of app, because Ojek is a very, very common thing to see in Jakarta. It's a very common way of getting places in Jakarta. So he just brings that behavior online. It changed after that. The app went wild, and I think the app is like 3 years now or 4 years. I don't know. I think it's like 3 years or something. 3 years, and they're like what, $5 billion that last valuation. It's been crazy, and I think one of the pivotal moments for Go-Jek was when they launched GoPay, which is the payment infrastructure behind the ride-hailing, because that becomes a platform for everything else. They launched GoFood. You can order food online. You can buy tickets. You can order massage. You can shop things. I mean, GoPay is very pivotal feature. It's a crucial feature for Go-Jek because it puts them in the center of all online activities, the payment. Not far after they launch GoPay, Grab also launched GrabPay. And the Go-Jek guys was inspired by Alipay, which is very, very huge. And the first iteration of the app reminds me a lot of the Alipay app. I think I made an anecdote a few years ago about how similar the apps are. But yeah, I mean, it's been crazy for Go-Jek.
What I thought was actually also interesting are the founders behind Go-Jek. I would like you to talk a bit about them. But one thing I do know is that one of the co-founders and Anthony Tan of Grab were classmates in Harvard Business School. And it's really interesting because they're both going head to head against each other in the ride-hailing space. Can you talk about them?
Yeah, I mean, they were mates in Harvard Business School. I mean, I don't know Nadim that close. I know of him. But yeah, I think it's that case of being inspired. When they were starting the companies, they were inspired by each other. But when Grab expands in Indonesia, I mean, I heard all these stories about, how one company would try to screw with each other in the early days, but there's no one could confirm that story. I heard this rumor that once Grab was actually have intention to invest in Go-Jek, instead of expanding to Indonesia, they would just invest in Go-Jek. But then Grab raised a lot of money. I think it was their Series B or C or something, and then canceled the investment or the cushion for the investment, and then just launch in Indonesia, and that pissed Go-Jek off. And that's just one of the rumors. One company is trying to screw with each other. I mean, there's a lot of stories, and even hearing them is like, okay, you can basically understand where the quote unquote hate comes from.
So other than Nadim, who is so far known as the face in front of Go-Jek, he has been going all across Southeast Asia talking about his vision of Go-Jek. and also trying to attack the other Southeast Asian markets. Are there any key co-founders or executives behind Go-Jek that we should know about in Indonesia?
Yeah, I think there's two other people that I think is also make their marks for Go-Jek's move. The first one would be Analyse, which is the president, I think is the president and COO of Go-Jek. He's one of the smartest guy, I think, in Indonesia, one of the sharpest guy. He really led Go-Jek in terms of strategy with GoPay, payment, using payment as an infrastructure. The other one would be, I think, Kevin Alui is the co-founder. I think he started out as the first CFO. He used to work for Zalora Indonesia, and then he joined Nadim, left Zalora to help Nadim with Go-Jek. He's very young, but he's, again, super sharp, very, very smart, very pragmatic, very data-oriented, and he's still there now. He's helping with the international expansion for Go-Jek. That's basically the early team that I think is crucial for Go-Jek. But then again, they acquired a few other companies. Mitrans, the founder and CEO of Mitrans, super, super smart guy, and now he's on Go-Jek's team. Eddie Sulistyo, which is the CEO of Locket, also acquired by Go-Jek. Amazing, amazing people. So I think it's one of those acquisitions that it's going to be an amazing match, because these are like some of the smartest people in the country. Very, very young as well, but very progressive, very mature despite their young age.
I'm very curious, how does an average Indonesian customer access Go-Jek? I mean, you talk about the mobile app. When I turn on the mobile app, what kind of services do I expect to see? Because I also know that other than ride-hailing and payments, Go-Jek is also into logistics as well.
Yeah, so they have Go-Send, which helps you send one item to someone else. But I think the two of the most popular apps are the Go-Ride, which is the Ojek business, and the food delivery business. And those two are just like, I can't live without it. I mean, I've compared it to like Grab Food, and I still choose GoFood every time. It's just the quality of the service. And although Grab's app is actually a lot nicer, but somehow the app can be nice, but if the driver what they call a partner is not as sophisticated from a consumer perspective, the one with better partners, basically.
So for the average Indonesian customer, when they access Go-Jek, they will see all the terms and, like, for example, the functions in Bahasa. Am I right to say that?
I think by default it's in English. You can customize the front page of once you open the app. You can customize to which apps or which services you use the most. They have tons of things. They have GoFood, Pulsa, which is to buy phone credits. They have Go Bills. You can pay your bills such as electricity, internet, and stuff like that. They have Go Bluebird, which I also use quite often for you to order Bluebird Taxi, which is one of the largest taxi companies here. The funny story is Bluebird drivers. 2 years ago, there was this whole massive demonstration by Bluebird drivers protesting the online transportation business, both Go-Jek and Grab, because basically it kind of diminished their role in the economy. But now Go-Jek really neutralized that situation by partnering with Bluebird, so people can order Bluebird directly from Go-Jek's app. I think that's an amazing move. Really neutralize that issue. Also have Go Massage, to order massage therapists. They have Go Deals, I can go all day, really.
But I want you to talk more about that, because there are different products and services that Go-Jek provide for the users. I think it feels to me it's very similar to an app in China called Meituan Dianping, which they call themselves, which just gone public, and they're called the Amazon of services. Is Go-Jek something like that?
Yeah, and they also invest in Go-Jek.
That's interesting. I think one interesting thing, and actually I want to bring it to the context of Indonesia, because a lot of my audience, whether they're from the US, China, and even the rest of Asia, I think they're not very familiar with Indonesia in terms of transportation. So I actually want to talk a little bit that's actually with Go-Jek, because I know when we talk about ride-hailing in Singapore, we know it's taxi cab. But I think in Indonesia, I think it's a combination of motorbikes and cars, right? If I understand it correctly. Can you talk a little bit about how the ride-hailing service works in Indonesia, for example, in Jakarta and other cities within Indonesia itself?
First of all, the public transportation, although not as good as other countries in Southeast Asia, we are getting better. The government is doing a lot of infrastructure building in terms of public transportation, but it still sucks because, Jakarta is one of the, I think it's number 4 or 5, the worst traffic in the world or something. I read it somewhere a few months ago, and it is one of the worst. So when I went to LA or into China, and they say, "Oh, traffic jam is really bad," it's like, dude, you haven't been to Jakarta. This is nothing compared to Jakarta. Trust me. I think based on that issue, a lot of people actually buy motorcycles. I have my car at home, but for daily activities, go to the office, I use my motorbike. It usually on a normal day, it should take me around an hour and 15 minutes to get to the office from my house. And if I take my motorbike, it's like 30 minutes max. So that, I mean, the kind of efficiency really, for me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I go to the office using motorbike. I go to meetings and all these places in Jakarta. I use GoRide, or if it's raining, I'll use the Go-Car. It's very simple, simply because public transportation is not an option for me because it's always crowded. I'm sure that they'll fix that quite soon, but till then, Go-Jek will be my thing right now.
And I do know that now you can actually take a train from the airport into the city of Jakarta. Am I right?
Correct. I still take taxi from there to my house because it's every 1 hour or something like that. So if you're in a rush, that's not a really good thing. Yeah, you're not in a rush, go ahead and take the train. It's quite nice actually.
How does Go-Jek differ from the other ride-hailing apps? I mean, unfortunately, Uber Southeast Asia is gone. What is its competitive advantage that makes it very difficult for Grab to actually gain a foothold in Indonesia?
In terms of the ride business, it doesn't offer a lot in terms of unique advantage compared to even Uber back then or Grab, besides the promotions and discounts and all that. But I think one of the key points for Go-Jek is, all these other services. So I like ordering food online and I like to pay my bills online. It's an amazing thing to have one app to do lots and lots of things only in one app. So I'm not sure whether this is a normal thing to do, but one of the things that I personally do every month is my GoPay is usually, I refill my GoPay to around 400,000 rupiah, which is around 25 Sing dollars. I can survive for like a week with that. But now every month I spend almost 2 million rupiah, which is around $150. And I use that to pay for my phone credit, my internet, I shop food. I want to go to the movies with my wife. I buy the tickets there. It's nice to have that many options in one app. While in Grab, they have this strong partnership with OVO, but it's a two separate app. I'm sure that they're going to make it seamless, but it's still two apps. It's still one app too many for me. So I think that is truly for me at least, and I think for a lot of other people, that, what a lot of people say, when they mention super app, one app to do everything. Go-Jek is closer to that. One of the things that I'm quite concerned about is that they decided to use different brand names and different apps across the region. Like in Vietnam, they call it, can't remember the name, but it's not Go-Jek. In that sense, Grab wins, because you just install one app, the Grab app, and you can travel all over Southeast Asia and still use that one app instead of installing another local app. I'm sure Go-Jek guys have their reason, but it's not as seamless compared to Grab in that sense.
Given Indonesia has the largest population in Southeast Asia, I think it constitutes almost half of the population of Southeast Asia. In fact, more than that, I think. How would be the matchup between Grab and Go-Jek in Indonesia? And then, of course, if we were to go out of Indonesia, which are the battleground countries you think that both companies will try to win over each other?
Yes, in terms of ride and car, I think Grab is accelerating quite fast. I think a month ago during the Asian Games, Grab has this press event announcing that they have finally surpassed Go-Car, the car service, compared to their competitors. They're the number one in terms of market share for car. But that's self-proclaimed. They haven't shown us the actual data. And actually, we did our own research. And it's getting close, but I think from our own research, Go-Car still has the larger market compared to Grab Car. But in terms of food, it's not even a close competition. It is something that Grab is struggling in terms of catching up to Go Food. So in that sense, Go-Jek still wins. And other market, yesterday, we published a news that Go-Jek will be entering Singapore with a partnership with Comfort, the taxi company. Comfort, they'll grow. I think even in Indonesia, in some cities where where the motorcycle ride is not as popular, like in Bandung, for example, the Bandung people, they don't use ojek as much as Jakarta because they have their own motorcycle. It's not as popular in Jakarta. So in that kind of market, it doesn't make sense for the ride business to grow. But in markets like Vietnam, it makes sense because everyone uses motorcycle there. It's not a new thing, but it's how Go-Jek needs to convince people not to bring their own motorcycle. Instead, they just should take Go-Viet. So I think that's the key challenge for Go-Jek in terms of expanding outside of the country. While in countries like Singapore, of course, The car business, I suppose it's a lot easier and I think the key is winning the payment market because that's how Go-Jek wins in Indonesia, right? I think GoPay is amazing. Like that's the one thing that really helped Go-Jek win Indonesia market. While in other countries such as Singapore, it's not as simple to just come up with one wallet. There's a lot of wallets around in countries like Singapore and Thailand and in the Philippines. So that's another challenge for Go-Jek.
I think there's one interesting conversation that comes up in this team that I'm trying to put forward. Because if you look at very big markets like India and China, they have their own local champions, and it's actually very difficult for foreign companies to enter into those markets. I mean, if you think about in India, you have Paytm, which is actually almost like a super app, very similar to Go-Jek. And if you think of China, you can think of WeChat, you can think of Meituan Dianping, which are very, very powerful super app that can give you every service that you require. In fact, in China, people are almost cashless. This is where I'm going to ask you the tough question. Do you think that Grab, coming from a smaller market, I mean, Malaysia and Singapore, entering into Indonesia is a big challenge? It may be because Indonesia would want to favor its own local champion.
Grab will face tough challenge in terms of winning Indonesian market, but not because it's not local. One of the thing about Indonesian market is they're very price sensitive. So this is where the bloodbath comes in, right? Even back then when Uber was still around, they were throwing discounts and promotions and subsidizing all these prices in order to grow their market share. And although whenever people ask me about that strategy, I always say it's the wrong strategy because then the only way you can win is to be able, to push the price down, which is not healthy for a company, but everyone does it apparently. Even the telco industry does the same thing as well. So it's not because it's not locally made. It's whoever can subsidize the most, who can subsidize the longest, they will win. Because Indonesian people, like 95% of the people who use ride-hailing apps, they have both Grab and Uber and Go-Jek, and see, putting the same destination, and see which one is the efficient price. Which one is the cheapest? That's the one they choose. Although that's not nice, but that's the way it is.
That is also the same for places like China, India, where the customers are very price sensitive. So where it's going to go, because I think Grab has very powerful investors, for example, SoftBank, who are also investors to Uber. That's why they managed to do the Uber Southeast Asia deal. But that does not mean Go-Jek is weak. So I probably have named two of Go-Jek's investor, which includes Google, Tencent, and I know one of their early investors, NSI Ventures. Can you also talk about who are the key investors behind Go-Jek?
Wow, that's a long list, man. I mean, Go-Jek has some really serious money behind them. Tencent, obviously, you mentioned Google, yes, and then they have Temasek, don't forget that. So Temasek has Go-Jek and Grab through Redtex. That's also interesting. They also got funded by JD.com, and then there's Meituan Dianping that we also talked about earlier. And I think other key investor would be Astra International, which is, here, one of their subsidiary is car manufacturer, which is a huge deal for Go-Jek because Grab also has Toyota and Hyundai. That would be an interesting synergy between the ride-hailing startup and the car manufacturing company. Although it's not that exact company, it's the holding company. But still, it should kind of tells us the strategy moving forward. But, we'll see. There would be a Jarum Group, which is the largest company run by some of the richest people in Indonesia. They own tons of companies. They own banks. They own cigarette company. They own lots and lots of digital companies as well through their investment arm, the GDP Venture. They're very strategic for Go-Jek in terms of opening for potential acquisitions and other growth strategies. And also, again, they have a bank. And Go-Jek, with the payment product, have a bank as an investor. I think that's a huge synergy as well.
There lies the most interesting part of the conversation, right? Now is trying to expand across Southeast Asia, and you have already alluded that their branding has a little bit of issue. The more deeper question is, will their business model work with the other countries, given that Grab already have a strong foothold in some of the other markets?
I think the strategy that Go-Jek is executing is, in Indonesia, the business model has GoPay as the anchor, right? I have a feeling that that's not the case in Vietnam and all these other countries. And that would be very unfortunate, but they're smarter than most of people here in Indonesia. I'm sure they have their reasons in terms of why they use different brands and whether they're going to use that payment infrastructure as an anchor in their businesses abroad. But I think that's the reason why they won in Indonesia. It's hard to imagine they won't use that same strategy outside of Indonesia.
If you think about that, Go-Jek is actually works for Indonesia market. I mean, for markets like Philippines, Thailand, in Southeast Asia, which is, I think, much more closer than Indonesia. Whereas Grab is very similar to what I think a developed country product is very good in Singapore. It has some foothold in Malaysia and probably Vietnam as well. Do you see the Go-Jek model work better in the longer term as a super app as compared to Grab? Because Grab is also moving into the payment space. Because the impression I'm now getting is that it's no longer about ride-hailing between Go-Jek and Grab. Actually, what they are both vying for is to be the super app in Southeast Asia. I hear the Grab founders talking about them as a super app, and they're really aggressively doing GrabPay, which is where they're going to attack Go-Jek with GoPay. So do you see that in that kind of situation, you will set up a different type of war between both Go-Jek and Grab?
Okay, first of all, GrabPay doesn't work in Indonesia. So they have to partner. It's a regulatory issue. So they have to partner with a local company, which is OVO. They share the same investor, which is the Lipo Group. There's a lot of rumors that Grab is acquiring OVO, but OVO is a huge company on its own. I think it's going to be more of a merger instead of an acquisition. But they have to make that work. That's the only way they have to make that work in Indonesia. So OVO is one of the fast-growing companies. They're not even 1 year old, but very, very large. They have thousands and thousands of merchants across Indonesia, and they're very, very prominent. I think in terms of GoPay, right, even Indonesia itself, we're very fragmented. So they have to apply different strategies in different cities, in Jakarta or in Medan or all these other cities. I can't imagine other countries will be the same too. I imagine Go-Jek will be, I guess I can understand why they have different brand for each country, because it has to be run independently, because it's kind of very localized and they don't know the market well. That's why they partner with the local people. Although I can't imagine they will use the different business model, but it's not impossible for them to be two separate companies under the same umbrella that is Go-Jek. I mean, Go-Jek and Grab also launched their venture capital business a few months back. They're becoming more like Google in terms of they're not stuck with one business model, whether that ride-hailing or payment or whatever. They can gobble up everything they want because they have the money. So why not?
The reason why China companies are so big and so powerful now is because they have the power of market size. I mean, let's just be a bit more accurate about what I meant by market size. So if you think about, say, a market like the US, it's true they have 330 million population, but actually the effective market size, it may be about 200 million. If you think about China, it's something about 1.4 billion people, but actually the effective market size is about 600 million. And for Indonesia, you have probably about almost coming to 300 million. At some point, because of the fast growth in Indonesia, your effective market size would probably, let's assume that Jakarta is already 60 million, you will actually grow. And that growth actually allows Go-Jek to have more muscle power over Grab, which actually only have strength within a small market. So this is a question that I think is an interesting question in terms of how we think about market size and whether that market size will translate into a different type of advantage for Go-Jek, because Indonesia is not just Jakarta, it's everywhere else as well. Do you see that market size advantage becomes Go-Jek's eventual play for the whole region?
I don't think so. Because again, every country, every market is different. And although that works in Jakarta, certain marketing strategy works in Jakarta, it doesn't work in Medan. It doesn't work in Surabaya. It works in other provinces and other areas of the markets as well. I think Go-Jek is smart enough to see that market size is big, but it's also highly fragmented. And again, it's very early stage. Although, Indonesia has a large market, but keep in mind that the online population is less than 40% of the entire population. So imagine that number doubles in, the next 4 or 5 years, where we would have 80% online population. Go-Jek has to win that market as well. So I think the next battle will be figuring out what's the next, 100 million online people want as a service. One of the things that Go-Jek is executing now is financial inclusion using their platform, which is GoPay and all these fintech companies. Go-Jek also invests in a company called Pasar Polis, I think, which is insurance. And I think it's very interesting as well. I mean, maybe that's, Go-Jek has all these data about the merchant and about the user. So I think that's one of the key things, that they use that kind of data to grow their business.
Where do you think Go-Jek will go in the next 1 to 3 years from now?
I actually joke about this with my friends who works with Go-Jek. Like, I won't be surprised if you launch a bank soon, like Go Bank or something, which is a stupid idea, but hey, not that stupid after all. But next thing for them would be the lending business. It's a huge business on its own. They have all these GoFood merchants, and they know how much they make because every order was made through their platform. So they could lend, give capital to these merchants to further expand their business. Therefore, they can take more orders from Go-Jek, and that's how they make their money from interest or something like that. They have this event business they call the entertainment business. They also have this subsidiary called Go Studio, where they invest in movies and content, and they would give capital to these filmmakers in exchange for some other things with Go-Jek. I can't remember the Gotix platform to buy tickets online, and they know a lot about their users. They just launched that pay later kind of feature where you can pay for something, but you can pay it at the end of the month after you get your salary or something like that. And the only way Go-Jek can do all these things is because they already have a credit scoring mechanism. And that would be the next big thing for Go-Jek is, again, this is the Alipay strategy where they know their users and they know every stakeholder in their ecosystem. And now they can basically give them capital and make money on top of that, build a reputation inside the app. I think that's going to be the next big thing for Go-Jek to execute in the next 1 or 2 years. And it's a huge business. That's basically the peer-to-peer lending company, right? And now Go-Jek has all the people in Indonesia are dying to get Go-Jek's data. And now Go-Jek can launch their own. Or, they have the money, might as well buy one and, execute that.
It's going to be a continued battle. Some days I feel that because Alibaba invested in Grab and Tencent invested in Go-Jek, it feels almost like a proxy war between Alipay and Tenpay in Southeast Asia. So Rama, many thanks for coming on the show. And definitely I'm going to get you back to talk about Tokopedia, Bukalapak, and some of the other big unicorns in Indonesia.
That would be fun.
Yeah, because I know you know the founders of Tokopedia. So in closing, I will ask 2 questions. My first question is, can you recommend a book, podcast, or anything else that has impact to your work or personal life recently?
You mean beside Analyse Asia? Sure.
Oh, thank you.
There's a plug for you, man. Well, the 2 books that has a huge impact for me is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. That book, 0 to 1, that's amazing. The hardest part for a startup is to start. Again, hence the name 0 to 1. My second favorite book would be Hard Things About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. That book kind of highlights his journey as an entrepreneur, as a CEO of numerous companies. It really highlights the struggle and the challenges of running a company from starting up, getting capital, all the way to IPO. It's really awesome.
How do my audience find you?
So although I don't tweet a lot, but I open it on a regular basis to get information. So you can find me on Twitter. My nickname is Rampok, Rampok. Don't ask me why. That's just my Twitter handle. And you can also email me at rama@dailysocial.id.
And most importantly, for all my listeners out there, you should go and look at DailySocial because they probably have the most accurate description of Indonesia tech scene, which is poised to be the next largest market after China and India.
Yeah, thanks for that, man. Nice plug.
Yeah, and you can find me at Bernard Leong. Google me. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Acast, and every others. In fact, I'm so glad to announce that we are now on Spotify too. Tweet to me, give me your feedback, and of course, most importantly, just always give us a 5-star on iTunes or a star on Overcast or Pocket Cast. So once again, Rama, many thanks for coming on the show, and I'm definitely getting you back again.
Thanks, Bernard. Talk to you again soon.